Welcome back to my game dev series. This video, I'm going to make an inventory. I'm not the biggest fan of doing UIs, but it's still really important. For this game, wherever possible, I'm trying to avoid any full screen interfaces. So let me show you the mockup that I've made so far. So to open our inventory, we're going to use our input wheel that we've made in the first episode. I'm also going to have an upgradable bag. So we'll start off with 3, upgrade to 6, and then our final upgrade is 9. We're just going to start with the smallest first. And I've also got a few buttons and functions that I've sketched out, but we'll go into that as we develop. Alright, we're back in GameMaker, and since the last time we touched the input wheel, we've added our depth system. Since we're drawing the input wheel inside of our player, when we put our input wheel below the player, the grass draws on top of it, which is something that we do not want. So I'm going to have to extract all our UI code outside of the player so that I can fix this depth issue. When I was looking at the code that we used for our input wheel, most of it assumes that I'm only going to use one camera object. Since I'm going to have a unique camera for each room, I'm going to have to track which is the current camera that we're using. So for each room, I'm going to have one object that's in charge of everything that's room specific. So in the overlook, I'm tracking the camera. I'm also doing all the background and parallax stuff. And I'm also spawning in the grass. This is a child of the room parent object. This is an empty object, and I'm just using it to categorize. So in our player, we're checking if a camera object exists, and if it doesn't, we're just taking it from the room's object. It's a little bit confusing, but now I can dynamically change the current camera object. So I'm going to be replacing all of these. Alright, so everything I just explained, we're going to scrap that. And I'm going to keep that in because a lot of the time I overthink my solutions way too much. So this is going to be our real solution. We're going to have a persistent object, and I'm going to tick this box. And this just means that even if we change rooms, this object is not going to be destroyed. So this will be for stuff like settings and variables that we want between rooms. So I'm just going to create a global variable for the current camera object. And inside of our room object, we're just going to set that global variable to the camera that we create. And that's going to be a lot easier. So now inside of our code, we're just using the global variable instead. So I'm going to delete our room parent because we don't need that anymore. And I'm trying not to overcomplicate stuff. Alright, so we've moved our input wheel code into its own object, and I've set the depth to -10,000. I've also increased the size a little bit since we increased our resolution last episode. Now let's get started on our inventory. Just imported some sprites, and we're splitting up the inventory into multiple parts. We have the top bar, we have the background, and then we have the slots. I've now added the inventory to the input wheel, and it creates the window. Now the reason I separated the bar was to use it as a way to drag the window wherever we want it in the screen. But to do that, I need to detect whether a click is on the window or on the grass. Now when I click on the bar, the player doesn't move, and I also don't trigger the input wheel as well. I've just separated the components of the inventory into their own objects. And now in the console, when I click, you can see which object I've actually selected. In the code, if I click on multiple UI objects, it will select the one that's on the top. We can now drag around the inventory, but I'm just going to make sure that it will stay inside of the room. The inventory now clamps to the screen, and it feels pretty good. But when I start moving and I drag, it's a little bit jittery, but I think we can deal with that for now. Going back to our mockup, I'm going to start on these buttons. Just added a cancel button, and this was actually pretty easy. Back in our mockups, I want you to be able to select a slot, and these 2 buttons come up. The first one is a trash button, and it also has a confirmation screen, but I'm not sure if I want to add that just yet. I think I'm going to add a few more mechanics, and if I really need it, then I'll add it. And our second button is a target. So I'm not sure about this icon, like if it's readable or not. So what this will do is condense the whole inventory just for one slot. So this is more like a tracker that you can just keep on the side, and then if you want to expand it back up, you can click this button and it will return to the normal size. I've made it now that you can select and deselect. And now the tab shows up when it's selected. When we press the tab button, we get our smaller inventory, and I've removed the cancel button on this and just left it as a resize. When we resize, it will automatically stay in the room as well. Now the final thing I'm going to do for this video is add some inventory items. I'm not going to add the full functionality just yet, but I just want to see it in the context. These are the items inside of the inventory. I'm pretty happy with it. I just want to add a little bit of polish, and I just want to make it pop into the slot when you get a new item. And this is mostly for the edit at the start of the video. I've just added some rough code, and we've got a little scaling animation. I think that's a good stopping place for progress for this video. If you want to see any early updates or want to share your own work, you can join the Discord in the description. I appreciate all the support, and thanks for watching.